They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed. Disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight on Rogueways, it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce you all to a woman who has created too many paradigm-shifting, society-changing, life-altering films, and we are so grateful for her particular genius to have been incarnated at this time alongside of us. You may have seen and been transformed by What the Bleep Do We Know back in 2004, like I was, and there's a whole lot more she's dug into, from sound healing and human transformation to the horrors of the birthing industry and the dismantling of false ideas in our culture. Welcome a woman who will continue to change the world through film, her books, and her powerful voice, now and forever. Betsy Chasse, how are you doing tonight?
Oh my God, that's like the best intro I've ever had. I'm going to steal that. Thank you. That actually made me feel really good today.
Good.
I needed that. I'm doing good. It's Sunday night. I'm just going to tell everybody it's my Sunday night. So I'm going to drink a little rosé and I might have a cigarette, because the world sometimes, especially nowadays, we need to do something every once in a while,
yes,
just to bring it down a notch.
Hey, we're into self-care here. This is great. We love the vibes. We're all chill here.
I've meditated today. I've lit my candles. I've done all the juju. And now it's like, you know what? Have a glass of rosé.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cheers to everybody.
Cheers. I just have tea because I'm boring, but I'll join you otherwise.
I love tea. I drink a lot of tea. I make my own teas and I get my own herbs and do my own crazy mixtures. I love tea.
That is so smart.
The best.
That's my goal, is to be in a place where I have so many things growing around me that I just have herbs and teas around, and I can just make all my own stuff
and go to an herb shop, like go to a Chinese medicine and like figure out what moves you. That's the best. Like I don't buy a lot of tea bags anymore because they're filled with toxins, plastic, and you don't actually get very much tea. So it might cost a little more, but at the end you can use, like, I have a little thing, I can use it like 5 times, and it's just like, it's a very healing.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's really smart. And then you're creating your own like magical concoction of like, this is going to calm me, or this is going to energize
me. Exactly. And then you can make your own blends, and it's almost like, people do it with pot. I do it with tea.
Yeah. Yeah, both, they're similar.
I'm like, what is my tea mixture? They're like, my friends all make a tea. They're like, what are you calling this? I'm like, calling it summer love, whatever. It's just rose hips and hibiscus or whatever,
This is
fun stuff.
This is the way of the folk medicine person. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to all the audience out there. You guys are the best. You're awesome. I love the Rogue Warriors. We've got people in the chat on Rockfin, people on YouTube, people elsewhere, people who are going to be listening on the podcast later. Love to you all. I do want to invite you all to One Day of Brightness. It's going to be on June 18th. Tickets are already selling somewhat fast, so if you want to join us, go grab your space. It is an all-day virtual event anywhere in the world you can be, and come join us for upliftment, healing, clearing, learning, getting in deeper touch with yourself. It's summer solstice, especially. We're celebrating that, and I'm just very excited. So make sure you grab your One Day of Brightness tickets. And Betsy, I always start with a pointless question of the episode.
Perfect.
So the pointless question of the episode for you is, what is your favorite thing that you believe humans still don't know the answer to?
What is reality?
Ooh.
We don't have any. I'm doing a new doc series where I'm asking a lot of people this question. And it's funny to me because after all that we know, we have no, excuse my mouth, fucking idea what the hell is going on here. Like, we really have no idea. So that would be it.
I love that, because that's actually part of what you helped me to. I was already questioning it, right? But you made this beautiful movie again that I think a lot of people out here might know. And if you don't know this movie, like, go watch it. It's a classic at this point, and it woke so many people up to the truth that we don't know what the hell is going on in this place,
Nope.
right? What the bleep?
Yeah.
What the bleep do we know is the official name. I love that there's actual symbols there. So the first time I saw it, I was like, "What the pound sign exclamation or whatever."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tell
Yeah.
us.
And go ahead.
I was gonna say, tell us about the movie and.
Yeah. It's I got hired to make that movie. I had never read a book on quantum physics. I was just learning to meditate back in the day when there was no internet really. So I actually had a newsletter and would have to try to read the newsletter and then try to meditate and then read the newsletter and then try to meditate. That was back in those days. But so it was a journey. There were 3 filmmakers, and we each sort of had our own level of understanding. I was the total newbie neophyte. Will Lawrence is a physicist, and Mark had spent a lot of years doing a lot of spiritual work. And the title came from the fact that they used to tease me because I would say, "What the do I know? But what does this have to do with me? Like, why do I care about quantum physics again? Like, I just want to know where I can buy these shoes." Like I always say that I was happily living in my shoe consciousness, right? And so, I think at the time, it was just an authentic, honest quest that we all went on, to really try to understand what this place is and why we're here, and to really start with some of the big things. I mean, the Bleep is really credited with sort of rebounding the New Thought, New Age movement again. And we really started with some simple concepts that I think are so important, especially even today, which is that your thoughts affect your reality. And I say affect, we said create, and in some ways they do create, but what we understand about physics is that it's like highly unlikely that you're going to think about a Mercedes, it's going to pop out of your ass in front of you, but you get to your perception. The fun thing is, like, when that movie came out, a lot of people were like, they made all these crazy assumptions. None of that is true. They're wackadoodles. I was referred to as the mouthpiece of Satan. Fun, at
What
least I
an
can die.
honor. You're like, wow,
Right?
that important. Okay.
At least I can die knowing that I was called the mouthpiece of Satan. But now today, like, most of what's in that movie is considered neuroscience, behavioral science, emotional intelligence, all of those things. So, I watch it now. It was made on the sort of cusp of the digital analog revolution. So you watch it and it does, it's not HD and it's not 4K, but I think I'm happy to say that it's still really relevant today, and that feels good.
It is. So I'm pretty sure if it wasn't this movie, it was something else that cascaded into my life at the same time that did that was on that same train of, like, your thoughts can create reality. And I've told this little story before because it's my first adventure in manifesting. And I was like, okay, fine. Then I'm going to just think about money coming to me just for free, just from wherever, just money flies to me. And I'm just going to visualize it. I'm going to think about how happy it makes me. And that 1 week I spent doing that, I found a $20 bill first, I found another $20 bill, and then I found $100 in 1 week. So I'm like, and I scared myself out of ever doing it again because I was like, I don't know what I'm messing with here. This is really powerful.
Well, let me say something about that, because it's important that I'm really interested in grounded spirituality. My kids are all making funny faces at me if I seem distracted, because they're all like thinking it's funny to dance funny at me right now. So
I love it.
I have teenagers. So, probably that came from The Secret. And
I never saw The Secret.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I shouldn't
Still
say
haven't.
bad things about The Secret.
It's okay.
But,
I understand.
I want to talk about manifesting because, in the Bleep, we never really talked about manifesting.
No.
And I believe I'm really interested in sort of like authentic, spiritual practices and doing the real work. And I shy away when someone talks about this magical manifestation as if it's some sort of like shit just flies out of your ass.
Totally.
Yeah, if you focus, you can find $20 and $50. But the real work in manifestation is, or creation is, what kind of life are you creating for yourself? Like, it's not sustainable to magically find $20. That doesn't fulfill your existence. And, I joked and I said, what is reality? One of the things that I've really learned over the last 25 years of being in this space is that, this is the plane of experience. We're here to have a journey and to explain. It's not the first, it's not the last. I've been doing a lot of interviews with major neuroscientists and physicists and all sorts of people talking about consciousness, and the nature of reality for a new series that I'm doing called the Galileo Project. And it's interesting because for me, the idea of that quick manifestation was fun when I first started doing this journey. But now what's more important to me is, how am I evolving as a human, and what am I doing? Wait, hold on a second. Oh, sorry. My daughter came out. And what am I doing to grow my own personal ethics, values, purpose, and heart?
Yeah.
That's really, and when I do that, the funny thing is, when I really stick into that space, it's not so much money comes flying at me, but but I'm always provided for, and I'm provided for in a richer, deeper way, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I'm in full agreement with you. Yeah, and that was the beginning of my little game that I played, right? And there's some other things physically and whatnot that I've manifested too, but I'm totally with you. And I have people who say, like, well, how do you know that it wasn't that you just noticed the money because you were trained on it? And I'm like, that there is no difference to me. Right? So when you're talking about that, I'm thinking of like, yeah, this is also where we're like, okay, I really want to, this is an example I use frequently. I want to scream at people less while I'm driving. Because that's like not something I want to just keep doing for the rest of my life. I'd like to be calm when I'm driving, right? So I'm manifesting that so that when I start to get angry, I'm like, oh, here, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let that go. I'm just going to be in the moment and just drive. It's okay. Right. And then now I have completely changed. I still do sometimes yell and get mad, but it's shifting, right?
Well, it's just about choosing. Like I say to my kids all the time, in the light of all eternity, because anger isn't bad. Emotions aren't bad. We got into this whole hang up about how anger is bad, and we have to process our anger. All that's true. For me, I've learned for myself, and raising two teenagers, trying to be better with helping them, going, yeah, it's okay to be pissed off. The question is, in the light of all eternity, what is the level of response required? So in the light of all eternity, if something is going to cause years and years of damage to your life, there's a certain level of upset you can reach, and you should reach, because it's equal to the situation. But if it's somebody cutting you off, like what is the response level need to be?
It definitely, and then it's like that, not screaming. Yeah.
And sometimes, I had a situation today, I was just writing about it, and it was really a valuable learning for me, because I did something stupid. I just bought a new car, and it said you had 30 miles until you ran out of gas, and then it lied to me because I ran out of gas like 400 feet from the gas station, right? And I'm stuck in this. I'm literally in a place where I'm almost in an intersection, and for 20 minutes nobody helped, and they just screamed and yelled and honked, and I was just I didn't know what to do. I'm calling my tow. I just am like, I can't push this car
by myself. Yeah.
It's an SUV. And and this woman pulled up behind me. And it's so funny because I'm like literally blink, hazards are on. I'm like waving like a crazy, traffic cop on crack, trying to get people to move out of the way. Right. And she pulls up into my business and starts honking at me and yelling at me. And there were plenty of opportunity for her to go around, but and I was like, at first I started to get upset, and I did laugh at her a little bit. But then after that, I felt a lot of compassion for her, because I thought, man, that must suck to have that much rage and anger that you have no capacity to process or move through, that you chose to lay on your horn behind a person who was obviously stranded and in distress.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, man, this is where we are in the world. And so, I keep telling people, God, it's okay to be angry. Actually, Learn to process your anger. Learn to process your sadness. Because if we don't, this is where we are is the end result of not learning how to process our emotions.
And not being allowed to be angry. Back to your point
Yeah.
that anger is
Yeah.
okay, and that this is one of my pet peeves, is this new age especially, and a lot of the spiritual bullshit that's out there is saying to people, you should never be angry. If you're
Love and light.
yeah, and I've even heard this quote like anger burns a whole field of virtue that you've accumulated, and I'm like a moment of anger, and I'm like, you know what? If someone's like harming a child or an animal in front of me, like I'm gonna get angry, and it's good because I'm gonna use that anger to stop them and to protect that being, or there's a lot of situations.
Anger is a great tool. All emotions are great tools, and I will say to some degree, I look back at the Bleep and I go, oh, we could have done that better. We could have done that better. Movies are hard because you have so much, like you have literally this amount of time, right? You can't explain the entire workings of the universe in like 90 minutes. Yeah. That's a little rough, but that's why I keep doing and creating the work that I'm creating. It's like, well, I'm trying to take little bite-sized sections and give it to people and hope that it doesn't give them the whole answer, because I don't even have the whole answer, but it gives them enough to send them on a journey of exploration. Because I think the other thing that we don't do anymore is we're too quick for the memes and the cool sayings and the cool quotes that don't have any depth to them. And this plane of experience requires depth, and it requires nuance, because it's never going to be 100% rosy. People think that like life, oh, my life is so perfect all of the time. If somebody says that to me, I'm like, you're in denial or you're on drugs.
Yeah.
and you're not doing them for medicinal purposes. Trust me. Because if you do ayahuasca for real, shit's going to suck.
You're like, oh my God, what have I done with my life?
Right? So, we're here to experience life. And sometimes life is going to just hurt deeply and with every ounce of your being. And if you don't have those experiences and you don't let yourself have those experiences, you're not even having the highs. You're not even having the blissful, amazing moments,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, like you said, each emotion has its own different power in the universe and in the world. It has its own lesson for us, and it has its own process of healing that it brings with it as well.
Absolutely.
Good and the bad.
I just released a series on YouTube. It's a new channel. It's called Bliss Up Now, and the woman that hosted it, she has lots of followers all over the place, and she wanted to kind of bring everybody to a new channel that she's creating. So she helped me produce this series called Energy, the Ultimate Healer. And I really wanted to approach the series from a very scientific perspective, because it's so important that we understand that our emotions are healing tools. That's exactly right when you say that. There is an energy and a frequency to them. And if you learn how to understand your emotions and process them, you're literally healing yourself energetically. Yeah. And that's not woo-woo bullshit. That's science. Science has finally come around and said, gee, stress and anxiety cost like 80% of the sicknesses, right? They're now coming out with this, right? Like, woohoo, flash news. It's like, really? This is news, But you go back and you look at some of the great discussions and teachings around your emotions and why they show up, and how you can process them, because the body is an amazing. I get mad when they call it meat packets or whatever they call the body, because I'm like, oh my God, this body is fucking amazing. Like, it is mind-blowingly amazing. It can literally regenerate and heal itself. And that's not wacko, that's science. And it's designed to heal itself. It's like, that's the whole craziness, right? And so when you start to really understand, if I'm feeling this anger and I don't process this anger, it's going to show up in my liver, it's going to show up in my pancreas, it's going to cause stress hormones that are going to make me susceptible to cancer or whatever else. When you start to really understand that, you start to go, oh, God, I'm really pissed off right now. Okay. I need to be present with my anger instead of vomiting it out, because that doesn't help either when you just spew it unconsciously. When you go, why am I angry? What's showing up for me? What's the anger about? Whatever it might be. And it might be another person, because this notion that all of our feelings are all our fault and we're responsible. That's another thing I'll get to. But when you do that work, you're healing your body. And that's science. That is literally energy healing at its core.
That's true.
And it's so cool when you get to that understanding, and then you go, okay, it's okay that I got angry at that person,
In fact, every emotion I have, I need to have.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is just me doing my work. And I get to ask myself I wrote this book called Tipping Sacred Cows, and I'm not a teacher at all or any of those things. I just kind of write about what I observe. And they were like, it was published by Simon and Schuster, and they're like, you have to have an exercise. And I was like, okay, I'm not a teacher. Why would I have an exercise? They're like, you have to have an exercise. I was like, all right. So I wrote this exercise called My Life Sucks. And it's basically a whole process of just forgiving yourself and really being present with how you feel and being okay with how you feel. And then just acknowledging, oh, this is how I feel. I feel this because that happened to me. Oh, so now I get to look at that and go, do I want to keep feeling like this? No, I really don't. Okay, cool. So it's just doing that work. And that in and of itself is healing. I just interviewed a guy named Dr. Bernie Siegel. Do you know who he is?
No.
Oh my God. He is like a national treasure. He's like 90 years old.
Wow.
He was the original gangster in terms of understanding that your emotional state was a healer to you. And he was way back in the 80s and 90s treating cancer patients.
Wow.
And they used to call him the controversial doctor of love. And he was called crazy by the medical profession. And so much so that they mocked him. Like they would mock him openly.
God.
And they would call his patients nuts. Yet, statistically speaking, his patients consistently fared better than those who did not have meditation, visualization. He used painting, he used songwriting, whatever, with his patients. Now you go to any cancer treatment center in the United States and you have meditation, you have Reiki, you have visualization techniques, you have art healing therapy because of this man.
Wow.
And it's like, damn. I mean, he was amazing. And he just said, the body is amazing. When you get present and you just start being, oh, I have this rage here. So he had little kids, they would draw out what they were angry about or whatever. And then they could be, oh, I have this anger. Okay, now I'm going to deal with it. And they would get better. Like, boom. It's amazing. That's the depth that we need to get into.
Yeah. I love that. What an amazing man. I'm so glad that he was around to bring us these healing modalities. I shocked myself. I went to a naturopath once many, many years ago, 12 years ago or more, and I still primarily only try to do alternative healing because it's what works for me. But this was one of my first naturopaths, and she asked me if she could do some acupuncture, B vitamin injection combo, and I was like, sure, like do whatever you want. I don't care. Like I don't know what I'm doing here.
Right, exactly. Shoot me with whatever.
Yeah. So I laid down on her bed. She started poking my back in various areas, and I'd had acupuncture before, so I was familiar, but I'd never had this happen where I then just started bawling. Like just went from totally normal to just bawling, like messy, crying, snot, tear and I was like apologizing. I was like, I don't know what's happening. And she's like, it's fine. Just let it out. Here's some tissues. I'm going to keep going. I was like, okay. And afterwards, when I finally calmed down, I was like, what is that? And she's like, that was the emotion you were storing in your back. And I was like, how? What? And I just I get it now very deeply. But at the time I was like, what the hell? So literally my emotion was just stuck there. And I had this horrible back. And the more I've released all of that, the more my back can move and I have less pain. And it's so amazing. Right? The
cool thing now is I'm doing this series. I did this in the energy healing series, because everybody thinks energy healing is some sort of woo-woo, wacko, nutty, witchy crap.
They think chiropractor is still woo-woo.
Yeah. But so the interesting thing is, so every digit on your hand is connected to a meridian, right, in your body. So there's, it's all reflects organs and whatever. Don't ask me which is which, because that I don't know, but I do this. The other thing that's really crazy about us human beings is we emit electrons and protons from our bodies, right? First of all, science will now say they won't call it an aura because they don't like the word aura. They call it a biofield because it has to be scientific. So they call it a biofield. Same thing. And you also, your heart, you know, when they say, you know, send love, right? When they say the word send love, like actually that's science, because your heart emits a frequency that moves around your body. Like this is actually, they've measured this, right? So when they're saying send love, they're literally telling, I tell people, like my friends, I was like, I just now visualize if I'm sending love. Before it was such an abstract concept. Now I just think of like, oh, I know my little heart is got this frequency of a certain amount of circumference around my body. I'm just going to visualize it love now, because now I have a thing, right? It's like legit. So the cool thing about technology and ancient wisdom coming together is that there's this, in the documentary that I just did, this woman, her name is a doctor, her name is Dr. Ann Baldwin. She's brilliant. She did one of the only National Institute of Research health research studies on Reiki. She teaches doctors how to do Reiki. And she has this little machine. You stick your fingers in the machine, each one, and it measures the level of protons and electrons emitting from your body. And then it calculates it and it shows a biofield around you, right? It shows your biofield. Now a biofield is supposed to kind of be like not jagged on around the edges, but it's supposed to be solid. The cool thing is if it has a break, generally speaking, there's a health issue there. Now, the funny thing is when I did this test, I had been dealing with some thyroid issues. And I went to a doctor and they're like, oh, we're going to have to put you on this thyroid medication for the rest of your life. And I was like, okay, you have to give me 30 days. So I went to my Chinese herbalist and I was drinking dirt, basically dirt, because that's all Chinese herbalists ever give you, by the way. It's just dirt, just for it. And it's brilliant. No, don't get me wrong, but it tastes like
dirt.
It tastes like dirt. So the breakage was right at my thyroid. And I had never said anything to her about it. And she goes, oh, I think you have a thyroid issue. And I was like, wow, this woman figured that out in 10 minutes. No blood tests, no urine tests, no waiting 3 weeks for test results, no nothing. Just, oh, I think we should look at your thyroid. She then did a 10-minute Reiki session on my thyroid. We did the test again. It was completely sealed. I went back to my doctor because it was getting close to the end of the 30 days. And his response, oh, we must have had a false positive.
It couldn't be that you healed.
Couldn't be that I've been drinking dirt for a month and had Reiki. Couldn't have been either of those two things. It must be, right? So I told him what I did, and he was really nice. He's like, I've been hearing a lot about this. I can't really comment on it, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So, it's the thing that's hard, and we're getting there. We're getting there as a we're either going to get there or we're going to get blown up by some ginormous volcano a la Pompeii. But one of those two things can happen. So we're going either way. But it's interesting to me when you really start to realize, well, what's the emotion behind thyroid? What's going on with that? What do I need to heal? So for me, the work is either A, I'm aware of the emotion, or, oh, I've got this health issue. Well, what is the emotion around that? What work can I do to heal that? Because it isn't just drinking the dirt. It isn't just the Reiki. It's about doing your own work and own cleanup.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love, sometimes it's ongoing too. So sometimes it's not just that you discover the thing, you figure it out. Okay, it's this emotion. Oh, I'm done. It's like, no, you may have to do like every day, like sit with that, have a new, I love mantras for this reason, because we have this lifetime of whatever we've been telling ourselves, whatever shitty lie or whatever like anger or whatever we've been repressing. So we now need to create a new pattern. So the mantra can help you create that new pattern that's ongoing, right? Like, I love myself enough to speak my truth, and people who can hear me will hear me, or whatever we need for our throat chakra, or whatever, it's different for everyone perhaps, but something like that.
I have to tell you about this book. I have to tell you about this book that I found 100 million years ago. It's called Okay. It's either called The Message from the Master or A Message from the Master. But here's how you know it. Um, it's by Anonymous. It's 100 pages. It is the most spiritual book I have ever read in my life, ever. It is a little story, and in it, one of the things that you learn is like language and how it works in your brain. And so it talks about mantras. And so for me, I have a mantra now, like which I've basically called my reset button. You know how you have like enter or return or, the on off button? Like I literally have a reset button so that if I ever start to spiral. So what we learned in the Bleep, one of the things that we learned from the late Candace Pert, who was amazing. People want to read another book. It's called The Molecules of Emotion. It will change your life. It will explain how the physiology of your emotions work, which is really important. But basically what happens is the minute you have an emotional experience, there is a release of peptides in your body. Okay. Those peptides take, I think, 90 seconds to process through your body. So you have 90 seconds to allow, not to try to stop, but to allow the emotion to process. Then you get a choice. Do I want to keep still feeling this way? That's the moment. Do I want to investigate? Like, do I want to ask questions? Why am I feeling angry? What am I feeling angry about? What hurt me? Where is this coming from? Because when you start to ask those investigative questions, you actually start to calm yourself down, but you're doing it naturally. You're not trying to interrupt. Don't feel angry, because that's not good. That just shoves everything away. You're still allowing the peptides and the physiology, your chemistry, because we have chemistry. It's going to do its work, but you're checking in with the chemistry, and you're checking in with your mind and your emotions. You're going, okay. And when you do that, now you've changed your chemistry, like literally you have changed your chemistry, because otherwise anger will just start. The brain goes, oh, more anger, more. Remember that movie? I swear to God, we always joke that they stole it from Bleep, about the what was it called? With all the cells in the brain. Remember all the different emotions they had, each character, the animated Disney movie?
Yeah.
We used to joke that they literally stole those characters all from the Bleep. We were like, good for that, good for Disney. They literally stole our movie. But good for them, because they taught it to kids. But it's the same thing. You learn how your chemistry works. And then you can like make massive changes in your life, because now you're like all of a sudden I always call it, for me, the girl in charge. Like, I'm the girl in charge here. I get to decide if I want to continue to feel angry, or and it's okay, by the way, if you go, yeah, I'm still mad. Like, you can go, yeah, I'm still mad. I'm going to sit here and be mad. I'm going to continue for a minute, and you just let it go. It does its thing. But when we have no idea, that's when the disease comes in. That's when it starts to build up in your body and store. Like you said, it stores in certain places, and then all of a sudden you have all these like anger peptides and juices in your lower back and in your kidney, and then it hurts, and then you're like, why does my back hurt? There you go.
Yeah, it's really empowering to look at it that way, right? That your awareness can be the key to transforming your pain, your health, your life, your relationships, everything.
Everything. You are in charge. You are the boss girl or the boss man of your reality. Like, that's the most.
That's
you get
manifesting.
To, like, there you go. Right. That's it. It's like, oh, and when it sucks, like when it's hard for me, I don't get mad that it's. So first of all, I'm like a huge gratitude freak. Like, I wake up every day and I'm like, fuck, I get to do this again.
Yes.
Holy shit. This reality is such a trip to me. I'm like always like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh my God, I gotta pay my water bill. Thank you for my water bill. Because that means that I'm existing and that I have a home that has water in it.
Yeah.
Like, how fucking awesome is that? Like, right? So you have to be really, I call it radical gratitude.
I love
like
that.
I'm radical gratitude. And when it's hard, I even go, God, this is hard. What am I going to learn now? Like, what am I going to have to practice? Okay, let's do it. If you approach it from that perspective, and I don't want to diminish, there's a lot of people suffering in the world right now. So I don't ever want to be flippant about that.
Yeah.
but I'm aware that even in my own life, when I've had grief, the fact that I could have a little teeny tiny voice in my head that said, be there, be present with it. This sucks. This hurts. And I promise you everything is going to be okay. That was the stepping stone that got me to be able to get out of that grief.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, you're not saying that these things aren't hard or that doesn't exist or that you're not going to have to go through some of that, but all those tools you're talking about are exactly what's going to get you through it, you know?
Right.
And especially get you through it in a way where you're not, like you said, continuing to store that damaged energy within your body, or, you know, going deeper into like trauma, which what trauma really is to me is being so not present during the pain that it's like, okay, well, someday you're gonna have to come back and be present for that, but I guess not now.
Right.
So you won't create
that's how
any
trauma's
trauma.
caused.
Yeah. So that's beautiful.
That's how trauma's caused. You know, that is exactly it, because we go numb and we go unconscious. You know, the trick of this game, I mean, we're on a playing field. This is a game, and the game is, for me, really is like, there's the in it, and then there's the little, quantum physics, they call it the observer. So then there's my little observer that steps back and says, hey, how deep into this do you want to go? And are you ready to hear me offer up some things? Nope. Okay. You know,
I'll be over here.
Oh, yeah, I'm over here when you're ready. You know, that's a hard place to be, but it's a practice. And I just invite people to play with that, because that will change your life.
That's beautiful. Well, tell us more about Energy, the Ultimate Healer. What else do you got going on over there?
So Energy, the Ultimate Healer is a 5-part doc series where I really was curious, like, okay, what is energy healing? I mean, we're so very interested. We landed in this like reality where there's such dualism, and there's such us and them, and there's such toxic individualism, by the way, and everybody is in it for themselves, that I thought, well, what could I do that would like shift the paradigm a little bit, open people's worldview? And I'm a really science-based individual. I like to read science papers, and I knew that, people are looking for alternative ways in which to approach their health. And I'm a firm believer. I'm an anarchist and a radical anarchist, in that I think the entire system that we're in is this crazy, unconscious, capitalistic greed, and it's not sustainable.
Oh, you're winning my heart right now.
And the only way that we're going to survive as a species is if we go back to radical compassion.
Yeah.
Okay. And that means so one of the funny things that was cool about the energy healing series is that there's very much an us or them mentality, right? I'm so ADD right now. So I really wanted to help people understand, like, the idea was, are we really connected? Right? Because there's all this woo-woo, we're all one and we're all connected. But it's, again, when you have these weird, esoteric, disjointed concepts that sound all warm and fuzzy, but people don't actually understand, they don't stick, right? They don't really stick. I wanted this concept to stick with people. So, look, in the Bible, it says, do unto yourself as you would have others do unto you, right? From the 10 Commandments. That's not even just Jesus or Moses, whoever the hell it was. Maybe it was God saying, be nice to each other. It's self-preservation, actually. If you want to talk about toxic individualism, if you're a dick to somebody, you're hurting yourself. And there's a way for science to show that. Because if you look at how the reality currently works, we are all energetic beings. Okay? Energy. Everything has energy. Everything is a frequency. Everything is always trying to find harmony. That's all it's trying to do. That is one of the laws of physics, right? It's either in chaos or it's in harmony, right? Your body, humanity, me and you, it's always the same thing. So if you and I end up in a room together, we're either going to find harmony or we're going to find friction and we're going to blow up, right? That's not weird. That's science. And so I wanted people to start to learn about how energy works, what energy healing really is. Because the other part of me that's disappointed in the world is there's a lot of people that will run around and say, "Oh, I'm an energy healer and I'm going to heal your aura," and like whatever bullshit they spew out of their mouth. And none of that is true either. A true energy healer will never tell you they're going to heal you
That's true.
because they are not healers. You are the healer. An energy healer can help you get your body into the optimum frequency for health because they know how to tap into that frequency, but they're not a healer. They're not doing some weird crazy shit on you.
You're speaking my
And
language.
I wanted people to really understand that and see how it worked. There are people that are very skilled at being able to see energy, to be able to hear what's going on with you because they're attuned and they've done the work and the practice to do that. You could do that too, by the way, if you want to do all that work to listen. It takes a lot of practice to be able to shut down the filters that the brain has given us in order to exist here. But so you want to get with a good energy healer or somebody who's really reputable. But the reality is the whole series explains, here's how energy works, here's how you work, here's how you can heal yourself, and here's how the energy of the planet works. And it's all sciencey and fun. I mean, I hope it's not too dry and boring, but I think it's really important. A lot of energy healers that I've seen have come back to me and they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that." You know, like we have this fun thing on the earth. The earth has a resonance called the Schumann resonance. It's literally the same frequency as the heart when the heart is in harmony. So we're literally connected to the earth. When you and I are connected, you and I are having a frequency right now, even though we're not even in the same space because it's non-local, spooky action at a distance. So these are things where you can look at the science and you can explain the wacky stuff with the science. And I think it helps people that may be on the fence or maybe confused. Like I said, for me, this sort of abstract concept of send love was sort of abstract. It's like, what do you mean send love? Now I understand the frequency around how my heart is working, and now I can totally visualize sending love.
And you can visualize it meeting up with the Schumann resonance and going anywhere on the earth.
We're all over the earth. And so that's what I do. I try to create media that helps people because I believe one of the cool things that is a byproduct of understanding this stuff, of really understanding how we're all connected, really understanding how we're all frequency. When you really take that on and understand it, you become a much more compassionate person. You become a much more peaceful person. You are less angry at immigration or whatever the things that are going on in this world are, because you just begin to really see that other big buzzword. I am a reflection of this. I am a part of this. So I've got to stand in my compassion, because if I spiral up into the chaos that's there, we're just spiraling upwards into extinction. So the more people that can get grounded in our compassion and our patience and stand for our values and ethics and boundaries, but still be compassionate, then we as a species have a chance.
Yeah, well said. It's also true that, the more we understand the way that science and these ancient traditions and spiritualities, like you're talking about, how they do connect and meet, the better chance we have of surviving as well, because allopathic and Western medicine is not able to help us as much as we might want. It's great for some things, not for a lot of things, and it ignores so much of the picture. And so if we want to be healthy and well and in balance and attuned, we kind of have to do that merging. We have to see both as valuable. And some people go way far to one extreme and go, oh, screw all the woo-woo bullshit and whatever. And other people go way into the woo-woo and they're like, oh, screw science and whatever. It's like, no, they're both actually saying the same thing. And they always have been, actually. The most ancient traditions and the most modern science are saying the exact same thing. And so we just have to. And I think it's like you're saying, it's going to help us transcend past all of this.
Yeah, dualism kind of messed us up, because At one point, everything got separated. The science took the seen and the church took the unseen, right? And everything got. My cat is going to jump in my garden. No, don't do it. Don't do it, Oliver. He
Everybody
wants to
send to
eat.
the cat. Don't do it.
No, this is Oliver. He's like he wants to eat the leaves. Say hi, Oliver.
Hi, Oliver.
That's Oliver.
Hi. Oh,
He
you're
loves
so
to eat leaves. He loves to eat garden leaves. Get down. So dualism was this sort of separation between science and spirituality, right? And it's important. And I'm not talking about church and state, by the way. So I'm talking about science and spirituality. So what happened is we landed on materialism, which is the notion that science can only, I'm covered in cat hair now. Science can only see, what it can measure, right? So it's got to be math, it's got to be measured, it's going to be seen, measured. And so when that happened, we lost or we pushed away a whole world of study that, is considered to be heretical. I mean, literally, back in the day, people like Galileo were, shoved into dungeons for making statements, right? Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake. I mean, there was a guy, oh God, was it James Lind? No, I think it was, again, one of them, who suggested to the medical community that washing your hands might, save more lives. And he was ridiculed to the point of being thrown into a mental institution,
God.
right? So, yeah. And now look at us. We're like obsessively washing our hands at this point,
It's
right?
like destructive now.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, oh my God. We're all surgeons. But, there's two quotes that I live by. One is from Max Planck. He says, science evolves one funeral at a time. And the other one is by Fritjof Capra. And he says, science doesn't need mysticism. Mysticism doesn't need science, but man needs both. And there's gonna come a time here sooner rather than later when materialism is going to go away, and they call that post-materialism, and there's different levels of it, where we're going to have to start to look at, like, this is a big battle in the what is consciousness world right now, because there's a lot of people that say consciousness is a byproduct of the brain, right? But they're all looking over here, and they know over here is like a whole world of like near-death experiences, psychic ability, like all this stuff. They don't want to look at that, because if they did, it would completely eradicate this notion that consciousness is somehow an accident, right? So we're at that place right now where science is gonna have to start looking at what we consider to be the mystical, which is the psychic abilities, which is the ability like precognition, which is like, everybody, almost every human I know can say, oh my God, I thought of a person and they were there.
100%.
Or they called me, or, whatever. Like, at some point, science is going to have to go, okay, we need to look at that. And when they really do, and the cool thing is there's a lot of cool scientists out there doing it now. It used to be that they didn't, I mean, maybe they're not burning people in the stake anymore, but they certainly are like ruining tenure and careers for sure.
Canceling their TEDx talks.
Right. But that's coming around. The thing to be careful with, and this is my rant for people that listen to these shows, that doesn't mean that, we have to have discernment, because there's a lot of people out there perpetuating shit that just is not true.
Absolutely.
Pretending to be victimized and canceled and blocked when they're just perpetuating bullshit, and so it's hard for us, because when you're not a scientist and you don't have access, like I have access to white papers, I belong to sites that I pay for, that I can read actual research studies, because I never read a newspaper, I never read a headline or a meme for that matter. If I want to understand a piece of science, I go read the science, and then I read the 4 other papers that are attached to it. It's very boring stuff. It's very time consuming. But if I really want to
I love it. I'm with you.
Yeah, but we don't have the time for that. And so people have to be discerning, people have to be careful, because there's a lot of people out there running around making up all sorts of things just to make money. And it's super easy in the new age space because people are desperate for truth, and and so you have to be very careful. But I think we're going to get there. I think we're getting close
I
to
hope so.
people really stepping back and going, huh,
It's interesting because all the things we've been talking about are the things that lead people to be able to have discernment, which is self-awareness. Because the things that cause you to buy into something that is not based in truth are things that are often based in different various levels of self-delusion. Like, I really want this to be true because it'd be way easier than like working on myself or healing myself or
exactly.
taking the.
I mean, my game these days is, when I was a little kid, my dad gave me The Art of War when I was 8 to read. And if anybody wants to really understand this playing field that we're on, read The Art of War, because it will explain to you that this reality is designed as a testing field for separation. So if you really think about like, oh, and it's not like let go of the aliens and the reptiles, just for a second, think about like, oh, like my son plays video games, right? There's levels to the video game. So if you think about it like, oh, this is a video game, and this level is going to test me in every way possible to tell me it's me against the world and to separate me from my beautiful birthright of connection. And that's the game.
Yeah.
So if you understand, oh, the game is they're going to try to do everything to separate me. And I just have to keep reminding myself, no, I'm all connected. Everything is okay. I'm going to trust in faith. I'm going to see the truth. I know what's going on. I don't have to get caught up in this anger or fear-based bullshit. Rise high and see, yes, there are things I have to do for my health. Yes, there are things that I have to do for my well-being. Yes, I have to make money because that's the game we're playing. So if you get really clear on that, the whole thing becomes so much easier anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you have fear, that all that does is let someone else control you. You're no longer in control. It's a beautiful thing. We preach the same things. So I love that. The connection that we have has to be to ourselves, has to be to the earth, has to be to one another, and to this greater, whatever you want to call it, spirit, source, universe, God, doesn't matter to me, but that too. And those, like you're saying, the game is to disconnect you at each one of those levels. Disconnect from yourself, disconnect from earth, disconnect from source, disconnect from each other. And that is the last place you want to be. It's not
Right.
a very empowered place. It's not going to heal you for sure. Tell us more about... Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
I was going to ask you to tell us more about Galileo Project. You said something about it, but I wasn't really quite sure what exactly it is.
So I'm filming the Galileo. Energy healing is available now. You can watch it at blissupnow.com. The Galileo Project I just have been shooting over the last few months. I'm actually interviewing scientists and medical professionals and people out in the world that would be considered modern day Galileos. People that have made amazing discoveries that are very scientifically sound, that aren't getting the respect and or position that they deserve because they don't fit the status quo.
Because of cognitive dissonance and bias. Yeah.
Because money. Let's just be straight. Because of money. It's really like my biggest rant these days is like, look, I have to make money. You have to make money. I get it. But we've really got to check ourselves as a species, because we are choosing money over everything. Greed has perpetuated. And if you look at history, I'm a history buff. Anytime a society has gotten to this place, it's been offered a choice. And we keep getting offered the choice. And at some point, we're going to run out of offers. And we have to realize that, like, war is not the solution. Forcing, like, in our society right now, all of world civilization, we have enough natural resources to feed, house, clothe, and provide water for every human on the planet. We have never not had enough. There has never not been enough. And if we were to adjust the ways in which we harvest and deal with the earth's resources, we would have plenty for generations and generations to come. We have been sold a myth that is a commodity, and we all buy into that. So when we stop buying into that and we start going, wait a minute, there's these people crossing the border, which is fake, and they're going to steal my fake money, which is fake anyway, which has been made up for me. And now the people that are telling me that all this stuff want me to hate those people, because it's better that I hate them. Then I realize, wait a second, I don't really want to be caught in this system either. So we have to get out of that game a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we're going to change.
And that's another, woo-woo, new age thing versus the actual reality, which is that abundance mindset you're talking about, and people think it's just that you just like tell yourself, oh, I'm in abundance, I have abundance, I'm in abundance, I have abundance. And like, that is true. That helps. It's not a bad thing to do. But the reality is to just recognize exactly what you said. There always has been, and there always will be enough here. The earth is a plentiful, abundant resource. That doesn't mean it will just fall into your lap necessarily. It doesn't mean it necessarily will be easy to go grow some vegetables or whatever. But it does mean that you can do it and always have been able to and always will be able to. And at least that can alleviate some fear and remind you, and the energy of that can attract abundance to you as well. But it's like
totally
acknowledging the reality of it, right? It's not just making up a fantasy.
Well, there's a great quote in the Bleep where somebody says, you can pile a ton of positive affirmations on a pile of shit, and it's just going to be shit bathed in gold. Until you deal with the pile of shit, it doesn't matter how many affirmations you say every day.
Absolutely. Yep.
At the end of the day, for me, abundance isn't just, oh, I'm abundant. It is, we are abundant. The world is abundant. We have plenty. The people that are coming that need the abundance, I send all the abundance to them. Because if you want to look at it from the selfish side, self-preservation, the more abundance I send to them, the more comes back to me. I don't really pay attention to that. I just want to see a healed, peaceful, calm, loving, compassionate world again.
Yeah. I know we've touched on it in a couple different ways, but maybe you have yet another aspect you'd like to share with us of what ways you think, that humanity is, I don't like to say failing, but like headed the wrong direction or not doing the best job. Or maybe another way to think about that is what's the largest threat that humanity is creating for itself?
So I look at humanity as toddlers. Do you have kids?
No, but I've worked with them my whole life.
Okay. So do you think of a 4-year-old, right? 4-year-old has just really embodied the word no, right? 3 to 4 years old, they know how to say no. They're starting to realize that they have some ability to choose, right? And so they get to be little assholes, right? Because they don't know how to manage.
And they don't have the idea of the other as a living, breathing, feeling thing yet.
Exactly. It's just them.
Yeah.
And it's full on self-preservation mode. This species is 4 years old.
Yeah. It's true.
We're all 4-year-olds. And so I try to, instead of trying to be judgmental of humanity, and I look at it like evolution. We are an evolving species, and we're 4. Is the way I keep looking at it. Like, okay, we're evolving and we're 4. When you get to 5 or 6, remember how sweet everybody gets?
Yeah.
And they're all so cute and sweet and loving. Then they get to be 9. God help us when this species is 9 to 12. Oh, but there's that sweet spot between 5 and 7, right? Where you realize you're going to be okay. You can say yes and you can say no, and you're starting to feel a little bit. But this civilization is a bunch of 4-year-olds, and so I don't judge it. I try to say, what can I do to inspire more compassion? What can I do every day of my life? That's why I'm sitting here on a Sunday talking to you.
Yeah.
Because all I want people to remember is when you're compassionate, you're creating a more compassionate world. And that's all we have to do. It doesn't cost us anything. It gives so much back. It's so powerful when you can just sit, sitting in my car out of gas, blocking the intersection, a woman laid on her horn, right? And I just sat there, and at first I was like, oh my God. And then I just sat there and I just felt compassion for her. And she sat there for 3 minutes. And then finally, when I just said, okay, I'm just going to see compassion for her, and that she finally pulled away.
Huh.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, because I don't know what else is going to save us.
Hmm. Well, and it's a
Because
lot.
we've already tried the world and the wars and the different, and like, I don't know how many more guns we can have. I don't know how much more fear-based things we can do. There's only one thing left: to lay it all down and just have compassion.
It's a lot easier to have compassion for people when you remember that they are psychologically 4 years old as well.
And you're connected to, and by the way, so are we. Like, I don't look at it like, oh, they're 4-year-olds. I look at it like, oh my God, we're all 4-year-olds. I'm there because I'm here. That's the other thing that I think a lot of the new age people like tend to like get caught up in, is they think they're better because they think they know something.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm 4 years old too. Like, I'm here. If I was better than this, I probably wouldn't be here.
I say the same
right?
thing.
So I'm here. So I'm clearly have shit to work out.
Oh yeah.
So I'm no better than anybody else. And this notion that, I've read every damn book there is to read, like try me. And so I quote, know a lot, right? But the minute I get caught up in that knowingness, the minute my 4-year-old just comes out and bites me in the ass every time, so just compassion.
I love it. That's what I ask people too. I'm like, have you ascended yet? No? Well, then you got some bullshit.
There are no Mercedes popping out of my ass. I am not levitating. I am currently sitting in a chair. I may not be touching the chair, but I'm sitting.
Right. Well, what do you see on the opposite side as our largest asset or greatest hope, or what we're doing the best at?
That we're trying to evolve. We haven't given up. Look at how many civilizations have come and gone, and we're still kicking. We're still giving it a go. All right. America's the great experiment, right? And so perseverance and tenacity.
I love that. Yeah. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you can look at it from both angles, right? Because you're trying to unite these two things. So from a, realistic, practical, physical, materialist angle, and maybe from the spiritual angle, do you feel like we're in a time of like great transition where things are on the precipice of something huge? Or do you think it's another illusion like all the other times we tell ourselves we're doing that?
I think it's a constant evolution. I don't think, everyone wants there to be some age of Aquarius. I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. Like, what are we going to all sort of like live in like bubbles and like float? This entire journey, first of all, if you get caught up in the notion that this is it, then there has to be a beginning, middle, and end, right? It has to be, oh, we're going to go here now, right? Because that has to be the end game, right? But I don't look at this reality as anything other than a stepping stone on a larger journey that my consciousness is on. So I don't see an end game because this is a level. And if you look, history has anything to say about it. There have been multiple ages of enlightenment, right? Some that we know about in history and some that nobody's even aware of. So sure, are we coming into an age of enlightenment? Maybe. It's going to be dark for a little while, just so everybody knows, because we are hitting a dark night of the soul right now. Oh, yeah. Because we have to seriously reflect as a species on our behavior. We are an aggressive, angry, competitive species. It's fun when I interview scientists and they say this like, well, we're an aggressive species. Like, they don't care. It's like a scientific thing to them. They're like, well, we're an aggressive species. And we're going to have to really play that out, just like every other civilization that has played that out has. So is it going to happen in your and my lifetime that someone's going to wake up and go, oh, we all should be nicer to each other? Like, everybody be kind, be kinder, be nice. It's all over. Like, it's obviously right in front of us. Everyone's like hearing it all the time. We're not choosing it, right? We're not choosing it. So are we going to choose it? I don't know. I don't know that that's, I think that here for me, I don't look at this life as an ending.
No.
Like, I'm here, I'm having this experience, I'm learning whatever I can learn, and then I'm going to die, and I'm either going to pop back out of another vagina, or maybe I'll go somewhere else. I don't know. But I
Pop
don't
out of
look at
a
this as the,
different body part on some weird planet.
yeah, exactly. I might sneeze and become a booger for all I know. But I don't. That's the way I look at it. I'm optimistic though. You have to have optimism.
Yeah. It's interesting for me because I used to think, a similar sort of thing. And, everyone seems so aggressive and so mean and so whatnot. And then I got out of unnatural systems. So I got out of school and I went to the world. And I was like, oh, actually, like a lot of people aren't in just this like competitive rip each other down, like, because school is a very unnatural place. It's socially constructed
Right.
and it's weird, right? And then I
Yeah.
moved to Turkey, and I was living in Istanbul, and I was like, everyone here is horrible. What a horrible culture. Turkey is the shittiest place. And I went out into the countryside, and people did the nicest things to me that no one had ever done for me before, as a complete stranger to them. Not because they hoped to get anything from me, just because
Yeah.
they hoped that I had a better day, time, whatever trip. And that was it. And that blew me away. I was like, oh, it's not Turkey that's horrible. It's cities are horrible because they're artificial, strange little constructs. And when I look out at nature and people who are closer to it, and people, traditions, and places, which is most of the world actually, I don't see that aggression. When I get into the unnatural and the constructed and the constricting, I see that aggression. So it's interesting.
Actually, in United States, it's the opposite. Most bigger cities tend to be more compassionate, more sort of liberal, more willing to share. When you get down to the rural areas, sometimes that's where it gets a little bit more aggressive, which is interesting. It depends on where they've done studies on this. Cities, it's more compacted, so you have higher rates of crime and higher things, just only because the numbers are bigger, right? So there's more people here, so you tend to have bigger things. But I think that I think that humans are inherently nice and good, but I think we're at a place now where the fear has become so high frequency that generally good people, like, you hear it all the time. My daughter worked in food service. She actually quit. She's like, people are just horrible to you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, literally, I'm a 16-year-old girl and I'm trying to fill up their Coke, and they're like, I'm taking to, like, they're like yelling at you for no reason. It's just gone out of control, and that's just the fear ratcheting up, and we do go through cycles of fear like this, and it's very intense right now.
Yeah.
Because the us and the them, and we don't have enough, and we aren't, God forbid, we don't have enough water, we don't have enough food, we don't have enough baby formula, for God's sake, that's scary for people.
When all they have to do is boop, turn off the TV, and they won't have so much fear. The other most unnatural place I can think of where people are more horrible than I've ever seen them in my life, after 14 years of teaching, traveling the world, and everything, is the internet. So
Well, that's easy because they get to sit behind a screen and they don't have to be who they are.
very similar. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, tell us about where people can find more of your beautiful works and your game-changing, life-altering creations. And if you have anything special that you want to invite them to, anything upcoming you want them to know about, or anything like that.
Sure. So they can go to betsychasse.net. And from there is a leaping point to my social, to projects that they want to watch, what the Bleep, energy healing, books I've written, things like that. I am not doing anything cool this summer because I'm in the middle of editing a project. And yeah, I'm here. I'm with you. They can watch this.
Yeah, I love it. The links are right below you no matter where you're watching or listening, so you can just hop over to betsychasse.net. It is Betsy, CHASSE.net. Excuse me. And my word. And Betsy,
How ladylike, though.
exactly. I also always like to ask people before we go, what are your final words or final thoughts or final messages you want to leave people with?
So my favorite quote is by a man named Jack Kerouac. And he says, be in love with your life, every detail of it.
I love it. Well, what a beautiful thing. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. And this has been your analog electric concentric dose of wisdom according to the creative change maker, Betsy Chasse. Betsy, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, into the infinite abyss we go a-traipsing, perhaps expecting complete destruction, finding instead that the nothingness we so feared does not exist, allowing finally the everything that was everywhere all at once to be seen, felt, heard, and experienced, which is all it ever wanted and all we ever needed. No fear, just trust and flow. And until you flow through the infinite love stream in full trust, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
I heard the man, they at it again, and I'm out to tell the truth once more. That's right. It's on the cracking, unknown in the house. APOGZ, that's right. Hitting the stereo near you. Truth is the best thing, and it's on. Yo, I once thought that I wanted to get Denver on track, but there's something more bigger than that. Something lurking, waiting to blow this state right off the map. A hidden agenda related to September. Doves carved up on the wall next to the highway. Up in the concrete, while rolling home next to where I stay. With state's destruction, like Key Martin malfunction. While NORAD's in a mountain anticipating our next move. My heart's jumping and I'm like, fuck waiting. While crooked taxes are burning a hole in my pocket. With $1 bill in the pyramid that's watching. Instead of having a capstone on top of it, they have an eye with a fast surprise while you're flossing it. Greedy niggas jocking it, politics plotting it. So who you vote for really doesn't mean shit. So save your energy from being drained by the enemy. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, envisioning dreams of them chasing me. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, envisioning dreams of them chasing me. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, secret agencies with a plan to dominate all of man. Check the records at DIA, strange murals and paintings similar to the ones next to the highway. With pyramids and flames underneath them looking like they're about to fly away. I can't be tripping, but it sounds like I'm on acid. Most people slipping, taken below DIA, held captive in the near future, where they won't hesitate to reinstate new laws for a bigger cause. I'm talking about established civilian concentration camps, introducing the military's labor programs. Expand your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness the belittlement of your people. Expand your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness the belittlement of your people.
Feds ain't stretching the truth, the script that he's spitting is true. Pay attention to what's going on or it might happen to you. When it's happening to cellular communication monitor, behavior studied and controlled through chemicals bombing nerves. Thomas Word or Jesus ain't got anything to do with it, religious cynic, where experiments cage and lace in terms of accepting limits. Things they can't explain to the sky when I'm in the Rockies. Chakra systems limited due to the voltage overhead pipe. Mind control victims, slap clips and machine guns for recess. FCC will help us speak less, manipulate us through weak feel right now fiction with the CIA trying to kill me filthy. Talking about the underground facility at DIA, no one feels that place laced with hints. Notice whenever I return home, black sun references in a new world Masonic capstone. Employ in Area 51 workers to build, and I don't mean to rant. In the face of an emergency, it doubles as a FEMA camp. The reactions, illusion, trickery, repeated through history. NORAD's listening in using technology, tracking where you piss. I'm not even paranoid or just facing the fact. Better watch what you say, it's another day under the Patriot Act.
Extend your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness up a little bit of your people. Extend your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness up a little bit of your people.
The idea is to bring people to the point where they are helpless, passive, and unable to assert their own creative power to form anything else. Success for people like this is measured in terms of money, which they then translate into power. Corruption and violations of the Constitution. Secret societies, the push for one world government. I'd like to get corruption and violations of the Constitution. The idea is to bring people to the point where they are helpless, passive, and unable to assert their own creative power to form anything else.